Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Abhijit Tibrewal. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Stephen. Good evening, everyone. I take great pleasure in having with us here today the senior leadership team of Mahindra Finance. We have with us Mr. Ramesh Iyer, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Mr. V. Ravi, Executive Director and CFO, Mr. Rajnish Agarwal, EVP Operations, Mr. Dinesh Prajapati, SVP Treasury and Corporate Affairs, and Mr. Rajesh Vasudevan, SVP Accounts. They are here to discuss with you their company's performance in Q4 FY20 and the business outlook going forward. We will have a Q&A session post this discussion. Let me now hand the floor over to our honored guest from Mahindra Finance. Over to you, Mr. Iyer, to share your opening remarks on the results.
Close to 1,000. Hello, good evening, everyone. Firstly, sincere apologies for delaying this call from we were supposed to be having it at 5:15. We are 1 hour behind, mainly caused by our inability to transfer the results to the exchanges, and that got it a little delayed. Nevertheless, my sincere apologies and thank you very much for joining this call. I would not really go into line by line item numbers, that must be already with you, and through the Q&A we can actually handle it. But I would more like to narrate on where we are, what we see on the ground, and where do we see going from here. So first thing first, I think it's now more than a month that the lockout is, and very happy to report that around 500 of our branches are already up and working, and they have been opened in the green and orange zones of the country. And as I said, they're up and working, and we have started seeing walk-in both for asking for new loans as well as for repayment of installments. So that gives us really a lot of confidence that things are beginning to get to some normalcy, and over a period of time for sure it will settle down and things will begin to happen. We do very strongly think that given the good harvest in this season, most of the states, the farm cash flow is holding up, and we are already witnessing it through collections during even these periods. As we speak, if we were to look at what percentage of our consumers actually opted for the moratorium offered, I think about 75+% did take the moratorium, but the ones who did not largely belong to the farming community, where they felt that their cash flows would improve and they would be able to pay. The real question was, how will they come and pay, or how will we go and collect? And therefore, when we gave them options of depositing in the banks or digital transfers, etc., some of them have taken that option. And April did witness a decent collection, and May, 15 days of collection has already equal to or slightly surpassed even what we collected in April. So to that extent, we feel extremely confident and happy that consumers are coming back to normal even in that front. We've said this before and we continue to hold on. Even before the COVID impact, we had said any normalcy to business volumes we could see only post October, that is the festival season, and it continues to appear that it would only commence around that time, because the BS4, BS6 on the vehicle front is still getting sorted out before people can decide to buy new vehicles. The tractor side is already showing traction. We believe that the pre-owned vehicle segment will definitely be the ones which will show better traction during this period. People do want to acquire a pre-owned vehicle rather than investing on a new vehicle. So that could become a turnaround story, or could become a story which would emerge much faster. So we think that while things will begin to happen, but by the time we can start talk of some normalcy in terms of volumes, etc., we would clearly see that it will be post-October where we would start to see this. These are times where we believe our priorities are to ensure that the employees do come back with confidence to work, and that they don't have any sentiment issue or any fear issue before they return to work. So there's a lot of employee engagement program in terms of our communication to them, etc. During this period, we have definitely focused on areas of where we could really control and bring down costs. And in one of our earlier calls, I had mentioned about this being our area of focus. We have identified about 8 or 9 focused areas where we could bring down cost, and some of them are bringing down the cost of our branch rent. We are in negotiation with various landlords, and we do get very, very positive signals from them of agreeing to bring down the rents by 20-25% or so. So that's one very clear focused area. I think we are looking at all the outsourced contract that we have for either security or for the BPOs, etc. And we do believe there are very clear opportunities of even renegotiating prices around all of that. So we are confident that with all our efforts towards cost reduction program, over a period of time, we will see the benefit of it in this year as we cruise through the year and reach the year end. We would see a decent benefit coming out of it. If I have to just put a number around it, we believe that a 40-50 basis point saving with all efforts put in place on a full year basis is definitely possible. So that's going to be one very strong focused area. As far as the overall collections are concerned, as I said, while the farm side has started to respond positively for repayment, etc., I think the commercial vehicle side, the aggregator taxi model, which are driver dependent, mainly the businesses which are driver dependent, where the drivers have gone back as migrants to their respective hometowns, could take little longer to bounce back as an earning potential. Even if things were to normalize, let's say the lockout was to be lifted for end May or so, by the time people come back to work and put back their vehicle on earnings and they start to earn and start to repay, could take another quarter or so. So we will have to live through this pain point for another quarter at least before we can say everything is returned back to normal. It is in this direction that in the accounts for March 20, we have taken a forward-looking extra provision based on what we see is likely to be in the market. We do believe that we have taken an aggressive stand to make that provision, and we could benefit out of it as things start to change, and we could get the reversal benefits as we go along. So far, we have not heard, nor do we believe that the customers may want to surrender their assets and things like that. I don't think that's going to be the story, because most of these assets are earning assets. They are livelihood products for many of our consumers. We would see definite delay, but we don't see them a default or a surrender arising out of that. So if I have to therefore conclude from where the business is going or where the collection should be, I think given a quarter or two, things should look much, much more normal. And as we've taken some aggressive stand in terms of extra provisioning, etc., should benefit us substantially in that direction. We don't see too much of competition arising during this time, because if you don't have your physical branches and things like that in those areas, it's not easy for someone to now come and make a beginning for a business. And therefore, we think the existing players will be benefited from the volumes, while the volumes overall are definitely likely to come down. I think the year 20 will be a year which cannot be compared to the past and made a reference of whether it's a growth or a degrowth. I think year 20 will have to be analyzed from a point of view of how the business is getting back to normalcy and what are the fundamentals of the business which works in favor, and what are the changes that we are willing to bring in to make it work in favor. So the digital movement in terms of giving opportunities to the consumer to be able to digitally repay or to even digitally demand loans which we can analyze assets and provide them will definitely be one of the focus area from where you will see change from our side. We also very strongly think, given a very large customer base and a very local employee strength who has a very local knowledge, will be an added advantage during this period, because our existing customers may want short-term loans, which we had launched as a program even 6 months, 8 months back for our existing customer with excellent track record. And I think that is something that will help us grow during this period. But we will be very selective on whom we want to provide such products, but we do see that as an opportunity. I think the important area to really focus around this time is also going to be the liability side, in terms of how prepared are we from the liability side. And I want to confirm that even if this situation was to continue the same way for next 6 months, we are very, very comfortable to make a statement that we have adequate arrangements for liquidity, and we would be able to meet all our liabilities, including interest payments, on time. We would be able to meet all our fixed costs on time. We do not see a problem on the cash flow front, even if you were to assume that the current situation was to get overextended for a longer period of time. I think these are times where one has to have absolute control over what's happening, but more importantly, one has to be very clear and must have a very high ethical and governance practices. These are not time to take any short cuts on anything. I think we would not come under any of those pressure. I think we will ensure that what we do is absolutely transparent from a consumer perspective, and we do believe that will put us ahead of many in terms of our relationships with OEMs, in terms of our relationships with dealership communities, as well as with our existing customer base. When we were talking of cost, the other area of cost that we would also look at is on the employee front. We do not envisage a reduction of employee or a salary cut as an option to look at, but recasting the salary and changing the mix between fixed and variable is one option that we are very strongly working on. And we do believe that that would help the company save substantial amounts. If the overall performance was to suffer due to market conditions, then the company may not have to incur that kind of a cost. So the larger theme that I'm trying to drive clearly is to bring appropriate controls and to ensure that the cost is kept well under control. Liquidity is appropriately focused, and therefore adequate liquidity is made available to meet all liabilities, including fixed cost requirements, to focus on the business growth in areas of opportunity where we think the customer needs vehicles, which is a livelihood and a daily earning product for them. And lastly, to ensure that in areas where there are earnings commencing to happen, where the customers are already beginning to earn, that we ensure our installments are well collected and controlled. And given all of that, and with the stance that we have taken to have higher provision already made, we do believe that the year 20 would see further improvement to our asset quality, a better coverage of our NPA ratios, and a better management of our collateral. With all of this theme, we would think year 20 would be a year of honestly correction and investment. It'll be a year of revisiting the processes and reaching controls on costs that we are envisaging. And it would end up as a year where we would have built substantial platform to be able to grow from there into the new era that will open up post this situation, which we believe may commence post-festival. I think I would stop at that as my initial comment, and we are open to questions which we would take on a better basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles.
Over.
The first question is from the line of Maru Karjania from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Sir, what would be your total liquidity on the balance sheet right now, and how much would you have raised in the last 2 months? Also, what would be your repayments till September and till December?
Dinesh, do you want to take this question quickly with data?
Yeah, we have shared in our presentation also. We have approximately 4 crore of liquid investment available as of today. And we would have raised in last couple of months more than 3,000 crore through various mode in the form of term loan, NCD, securitization, all put together. We have given even calendarization of maturities which are coming up in the up to September. If you can refer to our presentation.
Sure, and up to December, would you have the amount roughly?
I'll have to go back and check it, but
broadly, roughly every month there will be a maturity of close to 1,000 crore.
Dinesh, you can share it offline with all the investors later.
Sure.
And how much would you have raised from the TLTRO? The 2,000 crores, right?
No, as of from April to current date, we have raised around 675 crores.
Sorry, 675 crores. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. And the rest is all term loans. And could you share any incremental rates on borrowing or the marginal cost of borrowing just now versus pre-COVID?
So last bonds which we have raised under TLTRO are in the range of 7.5 to 7.65.
Okay. And the term loans?
Term loans are MCLR linked, so whatever is the present MCLR.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ritika Dua from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Firstly, on the moratorium bit, I'm sorry I missed a bit of your opening remarks. So what is the percentage of your borrowers who have asked the moratorium? And the second question is some understanding on the provisioning that you have taken, which you have shared that you think is obviously quite conservative in nature. Maybe some understanding on what went behind the number.
So in terms of percentage of customers who have opted for moratorium would be around, I said, 75%. And as I also quantified it by saying that largely the farming community as well as personal use professionals like the local teachers, doctors, and those kind of people who have a fixed income are the ones who have not opted for the moratorium. As far as the logic or the reasoning behind these kind of a provisioning, I think we have looked at it from 3 or 4 angles. I think one is we looked at from various segments, which are the segments of customers who may take little longer in order to bounce back to normalcy given the current condition. That's one. So as I said, commercial vehicle or the taxi aggregator are the kind of segments we believe could take little longer. For that matter, anyone who's in the passenger care, initially people would resist to travel in those kind of mode with more people in. So therefore, the volumes of business could come down, a number of passengers traveling could come down. So we looked at that as one approach. The second that we have looked at as an approach is given that during this 1 year period, we would more like to partner the customer and would not resort to any kind of repossessions, etc. That would therefore could mean going forward, there could be some drop in the vehicle price can happen at a later stage if we decide to take back some vehicle. So we have factored in some possibility arising out of that. The third we have looked at is from a zone. Whichever customers are in red zones and are in such kind of applications, we have even made a little more aggressive provisioning because the red zone, our belief is to take definitely little more orange. So putting all of this together, we have kind of felt there is a need for the percentage of ECL to move up from 30 to 35 and in some cases going up to 40 if they are in red zone, etc. And that has led us to this number which we have made a provision for.
So just one thing on the red zone, any number there that what percentage of our branches or what percentage of our customers are there in red zone?
Around 28% of our customer or branch or assets, whatever we want to call it, around 28-30% would be in red zone. But it's again important to understand red zone does not mean that everything is not going to happen there, right? So it will just take a month more than maybe or a 2 month more than a green zone possibly. So, but yes, it's about 28 or 30% of our customers would be in that location.
Okay. And so the 75% number which you mentioned, was this was as value?
Sorry?
The 75% number which you gave in terms of the moratorium, that was by
both in terms of value and number, more or less they would be same, maybe 2-3% here and there.
Okay, so I'll come back in the queue for more questions.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Karthik Chellappa from Bruna. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, sir. The 560 crore of provision that you have taken for COVID, how was it geographically? I mean, which are the states that are contributing to the majority of this provision?
I think East would have contributed little less because East has got a lot of green zones. But as otherwise, I would think that North, West and Central would almost take away 60-70% of this maybe. But it's more than geography, as I said. We have looked at the red zone as one approach. We have looked at various applications which are likely to suffer as the second approach. And our partnership approach of not to take away the assets but rather give time to the consumer to earn and repay are the three approaches. So it would not, we have not really looked at. Once you look at red zone, the state does come into play automatically. In that context, I would think East would be the lowest, and I think South, West take away equal share possibly.
Sir, you have identified a certain stock of loans and have taken a 40-50% coverage straight away. So that's the confidence that gives you that in the second half of the year, if things recover, this provision should be adequate? Or is it just like a substandard provision level on a larger stock of loans?
No. So as I said, no, we have applied the 3 yardsticks, right? And if those assumptions were to kind of start to improve, then the benefit would flow to us. Now, whether the assumptions would turn out positive in 3 months' time, 4 months' time, 6 months' time is something we will have to wait and see how things open up. But clearly, we do believe that, like for example, we have taken in green zone, let's say the transport application or the people movement application. We believe that could turn around much faster than in a red zone.
Okay, great. And sir, at this point, you have not taken any moratorium from any of the bank loans, right? You have not availed of any moratorium from any of the term loans?
Not yet. No, we have not taken.
Okay. And the commentary on tractors, I think, was at the margin is positive. In terms of the other asset classes, whether it is utility vehicles, cars, or CVs, which do you think will be the earliest to recover and which will be the last? Probably, I would think CV is the last, but
CV could be the last. But even in CV, no, LCV and the single truck, the owner-driven operators will bounce back faster than the fleet operator, because fleet operator's problem is also going to be of the driver's availability. So therefore, that could take a longer. I think the taxi operations, the aggregator taxi operations, because they are very semi-urban, urban focused, could take little longer. But the faster bouncing ones like tractor is first, maybe followed by pickup, followed by three-wheeler goods transport, the small packet transporters. I think these kind of segments will bounce back faster. See, we shouldn't forget that in rural India, the mode of transportation for people still remains in the hands of private operators. There are not too many public transport systems.
Got it.
Typically what would happen is, number of people now traveling by those vehicles actually will go down. And that could, honestly speaking, can become an opportunity for more vehicles to be sold. And since that could possibly be a temporary opportunity, people may look at second-hand vehicle for that purpose rather than a new vehicle for that purpose.
Got it.
So
very
beyond
clear.
vehicle demand is likely to go up. That's for sure.
Got it. Very clear. So just one more follow-up. Now, yeah.
So sorry to interrupt. Request you to rejoin the queue, please.
Sure. I will rejoin the queue. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
you all
you.
the best.
Thank you.
A reminder to the participants, please limit your questions to one per participant. Should you have any follow-up, request you to rejoin the queue, please. The next question is from the line of Umang Shah from HSBC Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. I just wanted to understand, so the reconciliation between IRAC norms and Ind AS, which is given in the presentation, there appears to be a shortfall in the stage 3 provision, but obviously there are excess provisions in stage 1 and stage 2. So how should we read into it? I mean, do we need to kind of fill the gap on the stage 3 provision in coming quarters?
No, so stage 3 is based on the expected credit loss. So really one doesn't have to fill it up, right? We have taken some extra provision in stage 3 assuming or estimating that the expected loss could slightly go up in the current situation. And which is what I was explaining, that if situations were to improve faster, we could even get the benefit of reversal over a period of time. So those really are not comparison. I mean, when RBI wanted us to compare both, it is to ensure, because earlier there was no stage 1, stage 2 per se, if you really look at it. So therefore, they wanted to ensure that the overall provision should not fall short. And if they were to fall short, they wanted us to make an extra provision if need be. So in our case, since we already carry provision higher than what we would have otherwise carried under the earlier regime, that need has not arisen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And just one question on operating cost. Given that there is a very sharp fall in OPEX this quarter, are there any cost deferments which have happened?
No, there is no cost deferment whatsoever. As I said, on the people front, clearly, if there are incentive programs, if the performance has not been there in March or in February or whichever month, then those incentives are not required to be paid either to dealer or to employees, to anybody for that matter. Similarly, as I said, we have been in the focus of to reduce costs for the last 6 months. I wouldn't say that everything is already put to practice, but the benefits have started flowing in for sure. So that's the second one, right? And the third one, I think we explained even I think in the last call or maybe something before that there was this fixed cost coming out of gratuity or whatever, which because of the recasting of the compensation which was done. When restated, I think there is some benefit arising out of that, but there is absolutely nothing which have been deferred which will come and hit us in the next 2 quarters or something. Nothing of that time.
All right. Okay. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from ICICI Bank. Please go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to know what is the current collection efficiency across different products and how it has changed from the pre-COVID situation to the current situation.
No, so I don't have it by product, but I can tell you that in April, our efficiency was something like 15-16% as against we thought it would be 0 virtually. So there are people who opted to pay through ECH and direct deposit, etc. And my understanding is out of that, a decent percentage would come from people who earn out of the farm cash flow. So far as May is concerned, in the 15 days, we have already reached the collection that we had in April. So we would expect that May would actually be almost double of April, which is an excellent signal from the marketplace. There again, the collections would largely come from farm cash flows, mainly in states like MP, UP, etc.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nischint from Kotak. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to understand, the GNPL typically, comes down for you between the third and the fourth quarter, but somehow it has not happened this year. I mean, how should we really think about this?
No, so, very honestly, our expectation was that we would close GNPA exactly like last year. But unfortunately, the major part of March got defeated. And we were actually cruising very, very well towards the same. And suddenly comes all of these events and it just gets stuck. My very strong belief is that once we are out of this situation, you could see a sharp fall in that happening as the market conditions normalizes. So it is, I would think, something that we could have done in March has got by force postponed. Because in March, what happens is many a time even repossession release is very high. Because we do bring back the asset, customer comes and settles and takes it back. So none of those activity could actually be performed in March. And all of us know that, March for us, even within the fourth quarter, March is an extremely large month. So I would think we would have lost at least, if not more, 1.5% correction possibility of the gross NPA for sure.
And that may be the similar trend in housing business as well.
Oh, yes. Housing, again, even if the customer had the money, right, he would like to store not knowing what's the next in future. So there also you will see a similar correction happening as things open up. But unfortunately, this happened in March. Suppose we were to sail through March, and if we were to get into this situation in April, we would have been talking actually of a very different number.
Sure. And just one thing, stage 3 coverage at 31%. So this is including the 500 crores?
Yeah. I mean, out of 500 crore, maybe 400 odd crore would have gone into stage 3. Rajesh, is that right?
Yes, 474. Around 470.
Yeah. So out of 574, 474 would have gone into stage 3 to push up the coverage to 31%.
And your stage 1, stage 2 coverage quarter-on-quarter is stable. So does that mean that the stage 2 number is stable quarter-on-quarter?
No, so once you get some moratorium benefit, then they stayed there. No,
Okay.
it didn't move forward.
Okay. And most of the extra provision has been pushed into the stage 3 category.
Yeah, which is why I explained how we went product-wise and zone-wise and application-wise.
Sure, that's it. And just one final question, if I can, and that is on the expenses side. There has been a sort of a sharp decline. So how should one think about it?
No, so as I said, the company's focus has been on the cost, definitely, and we've been trying to explain as to when would we start to get the benefit. And I must tell you that this is not over yet. We are still focusing on, as I said, on 3 or 4 major items of cost saving. And as a confirmation, none of the expenses which reflected as reduction here is something which is in the nature of postponement. None of them. So they are actual reduction that has happened, and we are focusing on at least 3 or 4 very strong areas of reduction, which we will see going forward. We will get the benefit of it through the year.
Sure, great. Thank you very much. I'll come back in the queue.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, please limit your questions to 1 per participant. The next question is from the line of Deepak Poddar from Sapphire Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, but with some disturbance. But go ahead,
So I just wanted to understand in terms of your comment over the demand scenario over next 6 months, how do you see the demand scenario shaping up?
No, so as I said, in the order of possibility, I think tractor demand is already beginning to be seen. So for us, the small pickup, the small 3-wheeler for goods carrying, the LCV will be the segment which will see traction for sure. We would start to see pre-owned vehicle definitely showing good demand and traction, but supply may not match the demand. I would believe so. And on the commercial vehicle side, it will be single truck or an owner-driven truck will possibly show some traction. I would put it in that sequence, but commercial vehicle would definitely take much longer. The passenger car purchase, personal car purchase could take longer. But commercial applications, small vehicles or mid-sized vehicles could show faster traction. Tractor would definitely show much faster traction.
Understood. And but you still be targeting growth in this year, FY21, maybe a single-digit growth or a double-digit, low double-digit growth?
I don't know. You will compare this growth to which year, because April, May, June, July virtually would be low volume or no volume kind of a month as I see from the market. So if we are willing to look at month-on-month growth over previous year, post-October, one can see some stabilization. But otherwise, we would like to look at 2020 as a year where things not go well at the marketplace, and then beginning to improve from October is the only way we will look at growth. Not growth as compared to any previous year as a percentage and fixed line.
Fair enough. Understood. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sanket from BNK Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. I just missed the cost part, which the fund which we raised under TLTRO. So it was 7.52?
7.8.
7.8. Okay.
Dinesh, correct? 7.5 to 7.8, right?
7.65.
So Dinesh said some. Okay, 7.5 to
7.5 to 7.65.
Okay, all right.
Okay. And sir, what would be your SMA 2 as a percentage of total book if you can give the number?
Rajesh, do you have that with you? SMA 2 to percentage of total book? We'll just give it to you. Somebody will just pull it off.
Okay. And the last one, so this increased into our provisioning that we have made 474 towards this stage 3, that is mainly on the back of thinking that expected credit loss will go up or the loss given defaults will go up. But no provisioning has been done for incremental delinquencies that might come up in the next 2-3 quarters. Is that right?
No, so therefore, the moratorium has been given up to May, right?
Yeah.
And we definitely expect that between June, July, August, the customers will start paying their installment. May not all 3 installment, but at least out of the 3, they may pay 1 or 2. So they are not expected to move up in the ladder. But whereas the ones which are already in the zone beyond 90 days, to whom no other concessions have been given, and they are in the same market and earning the same type of money, right? Therefore, we do expect that their built-up would be little more, and by the time they either repay or they surrender or we retake the asset and sell, etc., there could be some delinquency that could arise out of that. But if things were to start to improve, like, every year we see out of our NPA of closing, at least 40-50% of it gets solved during the same year. So we believe that could take little longer or little stretched. And we have therefore estimated and made a provision, and that's why I keep repeating myself, that if we were to start collecting from those accounts, the benefit of the reversals could be higher.
Okay. Okay, sir. That's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Roshan Chutke from ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for taking my question. Firstly, sir, what percentage of our cars and UV segment are the tourist operator segment where the business potential has kind of got deteriorated significantly? And similarly, if you can share what percentage of our customers are the farmer segment, the teacher segment, like you said, which is doing extremely well. Where cash flows are very strong, basically. So if you can just share some numbers around that.
So my numbers may not be exactly right, but I'm kind of, based on various reviews that I've captured some numbers. But I think the taxi segments should be around 10-12%. The farming would be about 25-odd%. The self business, or what you would call it, a self-employed, if you may call, including traders, would be around 15-18%. Would be the broad kind of a breakup.
And the rest would be?
Will be various categories, like contractors would be there, right? Fleet operators would be there. So then it all splits itself into 5%, 3%, 7% of different. There could be mix. Some who are in farm, some who are in farm plus haulage, right? So then we don't put them under farm community. So like tractors, there are large number of tractor owners who have 3-4 months of farming and another 7 months of contracting.
Right. And so of the 9-10% of our CV vehicle business, what percentage would be single truck operators?
Roughly
4%. Roughly 4%. This is Ajay here. Roughly 4% will be in FTU. First time buyer.
Okay. And sir, why do you think that pre-owned vehicles will do better?
For very simple reason that if let's say that earlier one vehicle carried 7 people or 10 people, if they today going to carry only 3, the number of vehicles required, because the number of people are the same, right? It's just that in one vehicle the number of people are going to reduce, so the number of vehicles required will go up. Now nobody is going to forecast that this is going to be a permanent reality, that in this country only 4 people will travel in the rural India. But for next 6 months, 1 year, that could become the necessity. So instead of buying a new vehicle for this purpose, people will buy a pre-owned vehicle and put it to this use. And then they'll continue to remain in that business because the investment is not very high, right? So, and similarly in many semi-urban locations where people may not want to use public transport, some may use two-wheeler to go on their own, some may use a small car, pre-owned car to travel on their own.
Okay.
Because at this stage, with a little uncertainty into the future earnings, right? Many people may decide that I need a vehicle, but I don't want to invest so much into new. So therefore, they may look for buying a pre-owned vehicle. Now, when I say the pre-owned vehicle demand will go up, one should not estimate that the pre-owned vehicle will replace the entire new vehicle buying.
Sir, and
Mr. Roshan?
I have just one last question. Sure, I'll come back.
Sorry, sir. Okay, thank you. The next question is from the line of Piran Engineer from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Most of my questions have been answered. I just have a couple. Firstly, you mentioned that, you lost an opportunity of, 150 the GNPL correction because of COVID. Is that because you couldn't auction the vehicles or what exactly?
No. See, ours is a very physical model where either customer comes to pay or we go to collect, right? And then suddenly everything comes to a grinding halt and the customer has the money but we can't go and collect, nor is he in a position to come and pay. There will be a very small percentage which will come from repossession and auctioning of the vehicle and all that. But in rural India, in tractors and kind of a product, typically what happens is you bring back the tractor, they come, they may even borrow from their family or whatever, and they come and settle the account. So these kind of settlements also could not happen during this period.
But so then, if it couldn't happen, they would have been put under moratorium. So ideally, it would not have.
No. They are already in NPA. They cannot be given moratorium. These are accounts which are in 90-day plus, which get settled during. See what happens, they get municipality payment settlement, PWD settlement, contract bills from the state government get settled, right? So then they come and settle their dues. That's how the last quarter, especially the March, is a very big month because all the government payments get released during those periods. And you see a hell lot of people settling their account during that period. And that's a time when they also have a business demand. So when you take back their vehicle, they come and settle. Now, these could not happen. Otherwise, see, typically what happens is, if you look at any year for that matter, December end, our outstanding NPA number, suppose it is 100,000. You will see them come down to 80,000, 75,000 number by March because those accounts get settled. So I am not talking of 2 EMI, 1 EMI guy not paying. So they would have anyway be frozen. I am talking of people who are in NPA, would have normally paid, could not pay. That's why that 1.5% difference will come.
Okay, I got it. And sir, if you can just help me reconcile the numbers. About 25% of your customers did not take a moratorium. Am I right?
Yeah, around, don't hold me by 25. It could be 22. It could be around that number.
Okay, but the collection efficiency in April was still around 15%. So there are still a decent number of customers who did not take a moratorium and still did not pay in April.
So you take the farmer. No. So you take the farmer. When you told him that, take moratorium, but this will be the interest. He says, I would rather not take moratorium, but come and pay you end of April or beginning of May when I get my harvest money. So the 25 will not reconcile to everybody surely will repay. The 25% did not take will have 3 or 4 categories. Some who has money who will pay. Some who has money but will not use electronic means, but they can't physically come and pay, so they will continue to remain in outstanding but did not take moratorium. There will be certain category of people saying, why should I take moratorium and pay so much interest? I would rather pay you 1 month penal interest and come and pay you when things open up. So you will have mix of categories in the people who have not taken moratorium. So please don't correlate people not taken moratorium should have all paid in April.
Plus there are tractor customers whose EMI may not fall due even in April.
Yes.
So then it won't be then the denominator of your 15% calculation either.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
But I do get your point. Point. So that clears it. That's all from my end. All the best, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tejas Mehta from Old Bridge Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my question. So I have one question, and then on the reverse migration that we are seeing. So a lot of people, a lot of laborers have moved back from cities back to their villages. So this basically poses a challenge of two kinds. One is whatever income that they would have transferred from cities to villages or to the hometowns, that will go away completely, at least in the near term. And that they would be an extra burden on their own families who are living in the rural belt, whether they are farming community or whatever it is. So in this kind of a scenario, do you think that there would be, there would be a stress on the cash flows of the rural belt, and therefore the demand for vehicle, they may push back, or the repayment would be pushed much back, to try and manage their own situation, which would basically mean that for you the recovery would be much longer than what one may be expecting.
Okay. So first is, this assumes that lot of labor who are earning in cities transport the money to rural to discharge liability that has been created in rural. Right? That's a fundamental assumption. Or the money that gets transferred there is to acquire more assets. These are the two bases on which your question is dependent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the labor who earns here does not earn so much that he sends money there to either buy assets or to discharge liability. These labor who sends money there is for the family to regularly survive and consume with that money. Right? So the assumption of will asset buying suffer, will recovery suffer may not happen. But if you look at it little more positively, if these laborers have gone back to their respective hometown, right, they have all been used to locally during this farming situation as a laborer. So they have actually earned some money locally, and even in yesterday I was seeing the finance minister addressing that Manrega scheme, they can also enroll there and they can start to earn something and all kinds of stuff. The third thing is, if these are migrant labor from here, they will engage themselves only in labor. But if the migrant drivers and others have gone back, they may start buying some small vehicle for their daily livelihood. They may put an LCV, they may put, a small, Bolero type vehicle, pickup vehicle, and they will start to earn something. So one way to look at it is that it can even push up demand in some pockets if the driver community who has gone back from here starts to buy vehicle there. So far as the labor is concerned, I am not able to see a situation that they were earning so much here that this money was being sent there for either a repayment or for acquiring of more assets. But definitely what can happen is again my guess on this. This labor's income stopping from here can push that family into some kind of a need for borrowing from either microfinance kind of a body or from a money lender or from their families temporarily until the person gets re-employed. So this kind of small ticket loan need can go up to meet even their daily needs.
Okay, great. And so would you be able to shed some light on the activity at the APMC levels currently? Have the activity levels been good, or they've been faltering at the APMC level?
I think again, honestly, I have not tracked it very closely, but these are some mixed news that you get. In some pockets, they are very active like before, right? But in some pockets like outskirts of Mumbai and Vashi-Gishi, whatever, there seems to be a lot of restrictions. So I think you have to correlate it to they are closer to which town or city and what is the COVID situation in that location.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhishek Murarka from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. So my question is, your business is basically, going to remain cyclical if it is predominantly, vehicle related. And in the past, you have tried organically to do SME, housing, or consumer durable more recently. But the deal with organic efforts is that they generally take long and also depend on the external environment. So in the current environment, would you think of any inorganic mode to either make the standalone business more structural or to become part of some larger, more structural business yourselves? Any thoughts on that?
So look at, first of all, culturally, any M&A opportunity we will look at should fit into our strategy, right? And we should have had that as our intention to be in that business. So which means once again, if we look at M&A opportunity, more or less we will look at around the same space in which we are there. Which means if you have a problem, you are multiplying your problem by taking somebody like that. Right?
Yeah.
Now you say that no, that's not the route we want to take. Let's get into something else altogether. Now that something else altogether as an opportunity should be so large that it becomes a game changer for you. Right? Now you can't pick up a company with say 5,000 crore asset, let's say they are in lab. Right? Then what are you acquiring? That's not in your strategy because you have not got into lab business. And you're getting a size which is not a game changer because you're running already a 70,000-80,000 crore vehicle balance sheet, right? So that 5,000 will come and only take away some of your mind share of focusing on something of that type. So that's the reason we felt that it's always good once you get to certain large size. It is good to organically grow, and if you get an opportunity to acquire in the same space that you are with a high quality asset and in a good time, then one must look at.
So the other way to look at it would be that you become part of another structural business or larger business where the cyclicality comes down.
Anything you want somebody else to acquire us? Is that the question?
No, if that is, maybe anything, what would you do to basically make your business less cyclical? Now, acquiring, as you said, is obviously challenging. Is the other option something that you're thinking about at all, or is that not an option at all?
I think that we are not looking at that as an option. I think we still think that the marketplace in which we are, the semi-urban rural market, there is enough headroom to grow in the product lines that we are in. We are still not controlling the whole market with a very large market share or whatever, right? And we would look at over a period of time more products to our customer, which in a way could either reduce our cost of operation or could somewhere begin to become like an anti-cyclic approach. But I think with a large balance sheet, we would like to focus on this and remain a leader in this business because we have now learned also how to handle this cyclic issue. I mean, it's not that it's killing the balance sheet. We have not found it difficult to raise money. Our ratings are not suffering, right? Yes, we do go through this pressure of earnings. And once we bring some stability to that with a better mix, right? Because it was very loaded towards, let's say, a tractor or a UV kind of a business. We then added cars to it to slightly balance it. Then we added commercial vehicle to balance it. Then construction equipment. Then pre-owned vehicle. Now we will also balance it by evening it out geographically. So two ways of de-risking we will do is to make each product of a certain size and each geography to be of a certain size. Then it will start playing the de-risking model.
Sure. And any capital you would be requiring additionally this year?
We would love to raise capital and we pray that the market conditions improve fast for us to be able to do that. With this kind of growth rate, what will we do? More capital? We will have to wait and see.
Sure. Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shweta Daptardar from Prabhudas Lilladher. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. So you expressed your optimism on pre-owned vehicle segment, and that also reflects on our increased share mix for past few quarters now. But if I even look at the competition, most of them have been vying for this particular business segment. So how is the competition flaring up for us? How are we combating it? Is there any specific geographies that we are targeting? And how about the market share, vis-a-vis other players?
So I will just give out one number and that should explain all your questions. I think we see something like 200,000 customers mature, let's say, every year, or 150,000 customers mature every year for us who try to sell their vehicle and buy a new vehicle. So we have got a very strong program now in place to transact for that customer. If I am a customer of Mahindra Finance wanting to sell my vehicle, then Mahindra Finance will help me to sell the vehicle to whomsoever is wanting to buy, which we will finance. And we will also then look at the customer who's selling as a customer to buy the next new vehicle. So with one transaction, we are able to get 1.5 vehicle kind of a business. So that's going to be one approach. And when you talked about competition, I think if you look at urban center and if you look at using of intermediaries and brokers, then there is enough competition. But we are in a semi-urban rural market where even today the transaction is between customer to customer, and the broker in between is just connecting of two customer and not really owner of acquiring this vehicle and trying to sell like a urban city. So our participation is being the link between the seller and buyer. And to start with, we want to do this with our existing customers who are in business to sell their vehicle and then buy a new vehicle. And that number itself is very, very large. And the third, of course, very clearly is, since we have so much of a relationship with all the OEMs and the exchange program that they run, when they try to sell their exchanged vehicle, that becomes an additional business volume which we will try to transact.
Sure. So secondly, how about the car segment? What percentage of your car segment is led by aggregators? Because due to COVID-related outbreak, there would have been large labor exodus, right, which even you highlighted. So what percentage of the car portfolio would be aggregators?
Sandeep, you are in this call. You can answer this question. Ola, Uber, Zoom, Revigo together will be what, 8-10%? I don't know.
Of the total portfolio, it is 10%.
Yeah.
Suppose we have 2 million customers, so roughly 80 to 90,000 customers will be aggregator
So
customers.
about 8-9% will be aggregator model. And not all concentrated in just Mumbai and Bangalore. They are widespread across various cities.
Sure. So, lastly, if I may squeeze in.
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. For any follow-up, request you to rejoin the queue, please. The next question is from the line of Gurpreet Arora from Aviva Insurance. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Sir, do you think the 3-month moratorium is sufficient for your customer set? And related question to this is, when you say 75% of your customers have taken moratorium, have all 75% taken full 3-month moratorium, or is there a variation? That's one. Second question is, why have you not taken moratorium from banks? And last question is, how far are we away from 2% OPEX to asset ratio, which you have highlighted earlier?
You are the smartest of the question raiser, yeah, because they said you have to come back in the queue. You raised all questions together.
I hope to get the answers also. Thanks.
Okay, so let me answer the OPEX thing first. 2% that we are aiming at is really a dream and a stretch. And we believe that and last time also I said that it's not all overnight, but in a year or two we will work hard towards that. But to some extent, the asset growth also has to help us in that. If asset continues to decline, I think the cost will look to be the same or steeper. So, and as I outlined, 5 or 6 initiatives or areas where we are looking at, when we get the full benefit of the technology interventions, digital use, I think the cost for sure will come down. When we get the benefit of cross-selling that we are planning to do for pre-owned vehicles of existing customer and create more customers, that will bring down the cost for sure. So I think 2% we would continue to remain focused, and you will see at every stage there is a decline in cost visible, which will give directionally to reach that 2%. Right? So that's for sure. What was your second question? I'm sorry. This was one.
So the first question was that, is the 3-month moratorium period sufficient for your customer side?
So my personal opinion on this is moratorium should not be the approach to customer at all, because there will always be a fear of cultural change in customers' mindset to repay. So in fact, even as an association, we are pushing the regulator to look at reschedulement as a possibility, so that you really look at the need of a customer, and it could be very different for different customers, right? So is moratorium 3 months good enough for commercial vehicle? Definitely not. For a tractor, more than adequate, right? So I think, do we all believe that on 31st May, the moratorium period ends, and from 1st June, everybody is going to repay on time? I want to tell you that that's never going to be a reality. It will take people another 60 days, maybe 90 days or whatever. So from that point of view, 90 days is insufficient, but moratorium is definitely not the answer. Rather, give more time by rescheduling the customer and understand his real need, rather than put in this habit of not to pay types. Because if somebody takes another 3 months moratorium but he starts to earn, he will still not come and start to repay. But if you reschedule somebody's account, you will actually look at when is he likely to start to earn, and you will give him only a 45-day moratorium. In some case, you may even give a 120-day moratorium. So the short answer is 90 is not good enough, but moratorium definitely is not the answer.
And sir, why have you not taken moratorium on your bank loan?
No, so we have sufficient funds or cash flow situation to be able to repay our liability. So therefore, we don't feel it necessary to take moratorium. We would rather raise fresh loans and which could come to you at a new rate. Whereas if you take moratorium, you are extending the same loan which could be contracted earlier at a higher rate. So you get two benefits. One is you repay on time and maintain your track record. Second is you raise fresh loan at a new rate rather than recasting the old loan at the old rate.
Got it. Thank you so much, sir, and all the best for ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anish Jobalia from Banyan Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. So I just wanted to quiz on the tractors segment where you said that you're seeing a lot of traction. So my question is like, what is driving this? Whether this demand that you are seeing is temporary or perennial, and whether this demand is across the geographies.
So across the geography or not, it may not be all states, but relevant major states are showing the demand, whether it's UP, whether it's Punjab, MP, parts of Maharashtra, parts of Rajasthan, I think clearly Karnataka, we are seeing relevant states are showing the demand. And it's at the back of the Rabi crop being good and the Kharif expected to be good after monsoon. So it's a farm driven, and I said somewhere in between, we still don't see haulage application or a contracting segment buying tractor big time yet. But definitely the farm community is buying, so based on good harvest now and expected good harvest the next season.
And the second question is, if I can, basically I just wanted to views on the housing product. Just some comments around that would be very helpful.
Housing, sorry, some comments on.
Yeah, I mean your housing subsidiary. What's the demand
So housing subsidiary. In fact, even in one of the earlier calls we had mentioned, and I think I don't know if Anuj Mehra, the CEO, is in this call, but we had consciously decided to go slow on disbursement and more focus on recovery, because that was one area of concern and largely cost from Maharashtra, and our assets were also little concentrated in Maharashtra. As we speak now, we were like Mahindra Finance, even in housing, we were seeing substantial improvement commencing to happen in the fourth quarter, and then we hit this unfortunate time. And they have also taken a view to make a higher provision in order to be better covered. We do believe that with the monsoons being good and the harvest this round has been good, once Maharashtra opens up, we would see corrections beginning to happen even in the housing business. We are now looking at opportunities of growth in states which are in green zones, and they have been able to source funds from NHB under the refinancing route, etc. So you will start seeing some growth beginning to happen there, but the focus will continue to remain in bringing down the net NPA to even lower than where they are. Maybe another 2% to start with will be the first benchmark attempt, and that we believe will happen as Maharashtra opens up to post this COVID lockout.
Okay, thank you.
The next question is from the line of Vivek Ramakrishnan from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Sir, good evening. I think one after another my questions got answered, especially the one by Abhishek Murarka was the question that I had. But since I got a chance, is it time for you to look at product adjacencies that you might have been considering, possibly even start buying out portfolio from other NBFCs who will be struggling for liabilities and will not have the strength that you have? And there's just one question, sir.
When you say adjacency, what product comes to your mind quickly?
So, like for example, you mentioned microfinance, and you are very well in rural. In two-wheeler finance, for example, a lot of your customers are going back there, buying maybe buying scooters and so on. So those kind of areas. Or you
Yeah.
could just buy out somebody else's performing portfolio.
So
So these are-
two-wheeler is something that we will look at because for 2-3 reasons. One is we ourselves had starting to put together a strategy for how to get into two-wheeler because we did see large number of our own dealer relationship are also in two-wheeler business, and we did see that as a one possible opportunity. In this round, we do see two-wheeler bounce back as a next best possibility. And third is, you are right, that our own existing customers, all of them have a two-wheeler, and we do believe that they may be the ones who may look for adding more two-wheelers to their family if they have all believed to travel alone. So I think two-wheeler is something that we would look at. Microfinance is something which long back we had gone deeper to understand whether we should or we should not. If at all we get into microfinance, we would rather create a vertical to get in and become of a size rather than trying to buy some small portfolio and help. If at all we have to do some portfolio, we would rather look at refinancing some microfinance NBFC, but nothing of that type at this stage. So any business that is not in our roadmap for growth or as a strategy, we would rather not look at them. And the two-wheeler comes within the vehicle family, and therefore, and a lot of ecosystem support available, so we may look at that as a possibility.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, we take the last question from the line of Subramaniam Iyer from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. A couple of questions from my side. So one is, what was the loss of business days in the month of March from a collection perspective, given that the lockdown started pretty late in the month? And the second question is, what are the outcomes that you are budgeting from a collection efficiency perspective in the coming months? And if I can I have one more question, but maybe after these two.
Okay. So the number of days that we lost, while we may look at it from the lockdown time to the month end, it would have been 12-13 days. But the beginning of this problem had already commenced. So I think in terms of active days lost in March would have been at least 15-18 days, if not more. And that's very substantial from a March perspective, given normally things starts to shape up from 10th, 12th, and moves towards 25th, 28th for things to settle down. So that maybe about 15 or 20 days is what we lost in March. That is very clearly. In terms of efficiency, as I said, April our expectations was 0, but we had about 10 odd %, 14% of whatever collection. This month we do expect that would be going beyond 20%. And gradually, I think each month it would add about 5-10% before we can say it has at least reached about 70-80% by September, October or so.
Got it. And the last question is just more of a number question. When I look at your IRAC stage 3 provisions, the implied coverage works out to about 37%, and your stage 3 coverage as per the Ind AS is about 31%. So what does it imply exactly, in the sense that does it mean that these loans are quite aged because the IRAC provisioning is well over 30%, which is generally it is basically these assets are in year 2?
So I don't know, technically Rajesh can answer better, but in Ind AS what it really reflects is that we don't expect the loss to be higher than this is what we cover under Ind AS for sure, looking at both historic as well as way forward.
See, under IRAC, you have to compare the total provisions. I think you are looking at only the NPA provisioning, which is not correct. Here the stage 2 provisions are quite higher in Ind AS. So when you see, you have to compare total. Even the RBI says you to compare at a total level and not at a stage level. So
because in IRAC it gradually moves from stage 1, 2 to 3. Whereas in Ind AS it comes to stage 3 because 1 and 2 is not recognized for calculating the coverage.
Because the standard asset requires only 0.4% of provision. So if you see on a total level, we are more, the provision under Ind AS is more than the IRAC, and we have not created any impairment reserve as required under the new guidance they have issued on March 30.
Yeah, the point on the total coverage is taken. My question was more from a perspective that So I was a bit surprised that even under stage 3, your IRAC provisioning is.
Because these are two different methods, right? Here,
Yeah.
with the aging, you increase your provision under IRAC, whereas under Ind AS, it's a common rate what we apply to all.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Abhijit Tibrewal for closing comments.
Thanks, Stephen. Many thanks to the Mahindra Finance management and all the other call participants for a very vibrant discussion today. Have a great evening. Thank you all.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ICICI Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.